Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? Welcome, my friends, to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I truly hope that you have enjoyed the last 3 podcasts presenting these practices based on interacting with unconscious mental processes and patterns. It's so valuable. Those practices alone, just what I shared in those 3 episodes, has the potential to change your outlook on life, change who you are, and spark a sense of awakening. Just that alone has that much benefit. Those practices in themselves have the potential to help you start living a fully engaged life. Far more positive, far more enjoyable. So before I get into today's episode too far, I'd like to ask your opinion. I'm looking at creating a new website and offering the Appreciation Mastery program and the Breath Bridge program in a digital format like MP3 that you could purchase and download right from the site. And I'd like to add some other things on the website as well. So please go to www.expansionmastery.com and check it out. And if you have any suggestions, any recommendations, anything you would like to see from me that would help you on your path, please make sure and send me any of those suggestions at expansionmastery@hotmail.com. I check the Expansion Mastery email account every day, and I will personally respond to you, and I will take any of your suggestions under advisement. So please jump to the website, check it out, and you can grab the book or any of those programs there while you're visiting, and make sure and shoot me an email at expansionmastery@hotmail.com with any of your suggestions. Jumping off a bridge or something like that, I don't need those suggestions. So you can keep those, but anything positive regarding the website or a teaching that you would like to see, I'm always open to that, and I enjoy reading your comments, and a lot of your inquiries are helping me to see what I need to do to better serve you. So thank you for your input. You know, it's really strange because people today we've stopped communicating. Everybody texts, but it seems to become increasingly rare that we have any meaningful interaction. And that interaction is so important for human beings. And I know everybody is very, very busy these days. But if you get a chance, shoot me an email. All right, so living a fully engaged life has nothing to do with hedonism. Yes, we talk about enjoyment. Yes, we talk about, loving our life, loving where we live, and all of that stuff. But it's not hedonistic. It's more so the result of all of these practices and a sense of awakening and the ability to live in a high vibration that allows us to interact with these things this way. So hedonism is just the ego's approach. But what we're about here is enjoying life to the fullest from a deep and meaningful way, something that's real. Most spiritual systems help you attain a greater appreciation for life through practices that allow you to experience, either directly or indirectly, depending how extreme it is, your own mortality, as well as the impermanence of all things. I'd like to present you with a practical, down-to-earth approach to understanding this concept, possibly a little deeper, without going too in-depth or becoming overly bogged down by dogma, which often happens. I know that this has a tendency not to be anyone's favorite topic, that there's nothing fun or fluffy about the practices about your own mortality. But interestingly enough, people tend to download the podcasts about impermanence and things even more than the topic of how the ego is present in competitive sports. Man, this says something, doesn't it? I'll let you determine for yourself what that says, but I just find that incredibly amusing that more people will download practices about their own mortality or impermanence rather than download something that jeopardizes how they view their interaction with competitive sports. Uncomfortable truths, I suppose. So while there may be nothing really foofy and fun about these practices, unlike so many of those within the New Age silliness masquerading as spirituality, I still assure you that these practices are a vitally important part of the path to living a fully engaged life. While they may be challenging to engage in and somewhat unpleasant as a practice, once you gain a sense of success and acceptance with these practices, the change you go through allows you to have a greater sense of appreciation for everything, especially your life. So this is a level of vibrational frequency, a level of heart opening, a level of awakening that cannot ever be attained through bypassing these type of practices. And they're not meant to be overly depressing or anything like that. That's not their function. And that's usually the ego when it kicks in as part of its defense mechanism. That people get that way, but it's really not, right? We got to remember one thing. I think the best visual aid for this is seen in the movie Scrooged with Bill Murray. And I really enjoy Bill Murray. But in this movie, at the end, right, he sees himself as through the eyes of the ghost of Christmas future, right? That experience he has where he's dead and being cremated, and then all of a sudden he realizes, he's alive, and he has this awakening. That's what the movie is it's a movie of awakening, and he has this incredible love and zest and appreciation for life. That's what these practices are designed to do. They're designed to give us that sort of experience, and all different cultures have different ways of dealing with it. Some of these are pretty extreme, where they'll give you something or put you in somewhere and you actually die. They take you to the very brink of death and then let you come out, and the ego is meant to die during some of these practices. But some of them get very risky. I'm going to give you a very practical, down-to-earth, safe way to handle such things. And then you can see what it does for you. But don't allow the ego to drive your mind into the negative, depressing aspect of this, because it's not meant to do that. It's merely a way that we can face this situation of mortality and impermanence of all things, instead of hiding from it, instead of living in fear of it, instead of having to form fanciful beliefs in order to create a sense of comfort around it. It allows us to directly work with it and go through it so that we aren't bound by the chains of it any longer. So generally, within these practices, it's a process. And first, we come to grips with our own sense of mortality through the practices that allow us to experience this as much as possible without actually experiencing our own death. And from my 2 death experiences, I can tell you that I can certainly vouch for the legitimacy of these practices and their immense benefit. So without this step along the path, you'll never go past a certain point in your spiritual awakening, and it'll remain difficult, if not outright impossible, to allow the ego to die. And as long as the ego is alive, it is your master. It is only through allowing the ego to die that our mind becomes a useful servant. This is one of those practices that the ego really resists. And when I take clients and students through this particular practice, usually what happens is they start to have things arise such as, well, as soon as I start doing this, my survival instincts kick in. That's an ego defense mechanism. Okay? Or they'll say, well, then why should I just care about anything anymore? I just don't even care. And again, this is another form of the ego's defense mechanism. So watch for these traps. That's why I'm sharing this sort of thing, because a lot of times people fall into these mental traps. And all it is in reality is your ego kicking and screaming because it knows that practices such as this have the ability to start to dissolve it and it will go away. So it's literally fighting for its life in order to dominate your mind. So be careful. Notice if any of these things arise. Know the nature of it and don't fall for it. So let's break this down and explore this a little bit. So first, as always, it starts with ourselves. So we'll take a look at our own mortality. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the bigger picture of impermanence and the impermanence of all things, the very nature of change itself, so that you can understand the immense value of this sort of practice. Once we are faced with our own mortality, something in us changes. We begin to realize just how precious and fleeting every moment of our life truly is. We no longer desire to waste time being negative or wasting that precious time with distractions or entertainment. Instead, we want to experience every single moment doing something meaningful. So let's use something based on this fine example in the Christmas movie Scrooged, rather than the Tibetan version that I was taking through, because that one can get a little gruesome. And I think for people nowadays, especially how frail a lot of people's mentality has become towards things like this, we'll leave that one for another time. So what I'd like you to do, unless you're driving, right? We never do this when we're driving. But whenever you have the opportunity, I'd like you to sit somewhere safe and secure and comfortable. Take a few deep, relaxing breaths. You know the whole routine by now, right? I don't need to go through that part. So what I'd like you to do is sit there, and I'm going to guide you through something here. And you can just listen to this podcast as you go through it. And then once you know the process, you can actually just do it for yourself. You don't need me to guide you through it. But I would like you to take a deep, cleansing, calming breath. And I would like you to employ a visualization technique. I would like you to picture a coffin. And as you approach this coffin, you're overwhelmingly compelled to look inside. As you grab a hold of the handle and begin to slowly, uncomfortably open the lid to this coffin, which you are so compelled to look inside. As you open it, you find yourself staring down into your own face. You observe your lifeless corpse, and you realize that you have died. You no longer exist. Take a moment to contemplate all of the people, things, and events that you'll never again get to experience. Contemplate all the people you will miss, all of those who will miss you and will be left in such pain at your departure. Think about all of the things that you enjoy and the fact that you will not get to enjoy them anymore. All the things that you have acquired that mean so much to you will be gone. Think about all the life experiences and events that you treasure so much and realize that you will never again get to experience any of them. Take a moment for all of that to sink in. Realize that there is no more you. No more physical body, no more mind, no more identity, no more you. You no longer exist. Allow this to sink in and be with the feelings that arise. Be with the physical feelings, that ache in the pit of your stomach. Be with the tears that stream down your face. Be with the extreme sadness that you feel for this. Allow yourself to cry. It's okay. It's more than okay. It's part of the practice. It's part of interacting with this directly. Be with those emotions. Don't be afraid of them. Don't stuff them down. Don't ignore them. Don't stop the practice. Be with those feelings. You need to let them arise. You need to let them be. And you need to let them then fall away of their own accord. Just allow yourself to sit and experience this. Feel it. Keep looking at yourself as your body is there. Maybe even see the body decomposing until it turns to dust and blows away. There is no more you. Once the feelings subside, you'll find that you arrive in a place of acceptance. This is one of the points of success with a practice such as this. When all of a sudden you find yourself no longer feeling the pain, no longer feeling the negativity, you feel okay with it. You accept it. You realize through a sense of awakening that as soon as you were born, you were guaranteed that you would die, and that this is a normal, natural part of the cycle of life. Once you do this, then you can take a few deep cleansing breaths, wipe the tears from your eyes, slowly open them, and slowly go back to interacting with your normal day. Through this practice, you can learn to accept the inevitability of death. Doesn't mean we have to look forward to it or that we just give up on life. No. That means that you weren't very successful with the practice and the ego has taken hold and sparked its defense mechanisms. And the tears are good. I will say from my own experience, when I went through this, I had tears streaming down my face like crazy. And during the practice, I felt such sorrow. And then suddenly I reached a point where I accepted it, where I understood it in a way that I couldn't understand it before. And I was able to let go of my fear of dying. And because of that, I was able to embrace life to the fullest. See, when we let go of our fear of dying, it doesn't mean that we let go of our zest for life. No, it opens up this more natural, pure sense of appreciation for what we are experiencing in this lifetime. Instead of it being driven by the ego and the mind, it's experienced through essence. We get in touch with our true self, and we're able to start living from that space. Through an exercise such as this, there are two deaths that occur. One, we visualize our own physical and mental death, but then what happens during this as part of the mental death is that the ego starts to dissolve. It starts to die through this type of practice. So this has such tremendous benefit. And it's because of that the ego and the mind get out of the way and we're able to connect to our essence. It's the essence that allows us to accept. It's the essence that allows us to come out of these practices with a renewed sense of love for life. It's natural to cry. It's even a sign that you are succeeding. Allow the emotions to come up. That is the way we're directly working with this sort of thing without actually having to die. So that's okay. It's necessary to face this in this type of manner in order to go through it instead of either denying it or seeking a false sense of comfort. After all, that's what organized religion is, right? The business, and yes, it is a business, of selling comfort. It's all fake comfort, but it doesn't matter. As long as you feel better, as long as you can trick yourself into believing it, you'll feel better, and that's all that matters. But it's not real, and it can't take you anywhere on a spiritual path. It can't lead you to awakening at all. It just deepens your delusion. But this sort of practice leads you through the discomfort into a new sense of freedom. And it doesn't lead you towards delusion. It is giving you an awakening and a sense of freedom that you have never known before. And it's a strange paradox, but through no longer clinging to life, we're able to enjoy life so much more purely. And this is one of the ways you are able to live a fully engaged life. The second part of the wisdom comes through understanding the impermanent nature of everything in the universe. Every person, thing, experience, it's all temporary. Everything is constantly in a state of flux, ever changing. Things, as well as people, are either in a state of becoming or they are in a state of declining. Start to look around you at everything. Look at the tree in your yard. What's that tree going to look like in 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, right? Sooner or later, that tree will fall, and it will decay, and it will dissolve back into the earth. It will become soil. It returns to that from which it came. Through understanding this, understanding the impermanent nature of all things, we can appreciate the things we have and what we have in the moment. I'll share a personal example from my childhood. When I was young, 10, 11, 12, whatever, I really valued the toys that I had and the comic books that I had, and my family was not well-to-do. We were not wealthy at all. We got by, we did good, we had a good house and all of that stuff, but we certainly did not have an abundance. And anything that I had, I really liked. And if I use my comic books here as an example, right, I made sure that I had plastic sleeves or bags or something that I could keep my comics in to keep them good. And my brother teases me about this. And, my mom says I was like that ever since I was a tiny child. I used to empty my toy box and reorganize everything. And that's just part of who I was then. And, so I would try and keep these comics, and some of them I wouldn't even read. I'd get them and put them right in plastic so I could keep it in pristine condition. And it would be one thing if I was trying to do that in order to sell them in mint condition at another time. But this was just, I didn't want them to get ruined. I didn't want my fingerprints to eat into the print on the cover or whatever, that sort of thing. And I used to do this with all kinds of things. And then after I matured, I went through these practices. I realized that, there's a time and place for such things. Yes, I still keep my things nice, but now I understand that those books are meant to be read. That's why they came into being. And I have to either get the enjoyment, or now the books that I read are for wisdom. Everything my wife and I read is based in acquiring knowledge and learning and being able to apply that knowledge through experience. But now, my wife and I both, we keep things nice, but we realize that their real value comes in experiencing them, in being with them. See, and we know now that everything is impermanent and it's going to go sooner or later. So enjoy it while you have it. And we still keep it nice because we reference these books over and over again. But at the same time, we don't shy away from gaining what they have to offer. Now, I know that's kind of a silly, superficial way to give an example, but it was just one example of how this comes about. See, not all of it is about depression and death and stuff. Some of it is just a natural way of nature. It's just like when we do various mindfulness practices, such as when we're mindful of physical sensations in the body. We pay attention to whether those physical sensations are positive, negative, or neutral, right? Pleasurable, painful, or indifferent. So many ways to look at it, but it's always threefold. But the purpose is to identify the feeling associated with the physical sensation, whether we view it as a positive, a negative, or whether it's just kind of neutral, right? Whether, okay, I feel my body just feels really good today, or I got a lot of pain in my knee today, or whatever it is, or if you just feel kind of indifferent, doesn't feel good, doesn't feel bad, that's fine. It allows us to identify these things. And more importantly, we identify and develop a sense of focus for the phenomenon of origination. And through this, we observe these physical sensations as they arise, as they are, as we're experiencing them, and then as they go away. So you're doing the same thing in the mortality practice, is you're seeing yourself, right, yourself in your life, and then you see your death and you spend time just being with that until those feelings subside. And we understand that this too shall pass, right? Everything is impermanent. So this is another way to look at the impermanence in many things, even things we're feeling. You could look at as any situation arises, how you feel about that situation, how you react to that situation until you learn how to respond instead. But as you react, you will either react favorably, unfavorably, or indifferently towards any situation that's unfolding before you. And you can use the same threefold process to look at that and understand the point of origination of those feelings and attitudes and things. So all of this is all part of impermanence, and how we can then take our understanding of impermanence and utilize it in other practices. That's why this is so important. And through this, you develop a far deeper, greater sense of mindfulness, as well as an understanding that we have to interact with and enjoy the moment, what is here right now. We have to learn to accept it and enjoy that acceptance of it for what it is, and realize that every moment we have, regardless of how the ego may perceive it as positive or negative, every moment is valuable because it's a moment we get to experience our life. I value every single opportunity that I have to hold my wife's hand, to kiss her, to hold her. Every opportunity I have, I try and take advantage of it because I want to experience that as much as possible. And what I really like is to try and enrich the enjoyment for others when we're together. I want my wife to enjoy our time like nothing else. I want it to be fantastic for her. I want anyone that I come in contact with to be a little better because we had that time together. I want them to enjoy their time with me. I want them to be able to laugh and to feel good and to get some sort of benefit. And that's why I'm doing these shows. And it all comes down to the acknowledgement that there's only now, each ever unfolding moment. So eventually we let go of the positive, we let go of the negative, so that the mind doesn't develop attachments to these things, because it can develop attachments to the positive just as much as it does the negative. And then you find yourself clinging to yet another extreme. It's all ego. Ideally, at some point, we let go of these things and live in the reality of what is and in the moment of the here and now, because every moment is in itself the ultimate expression of impermanence. And remember, when we're in this state where we are in the neutral or the indifferent, doesn't mean that our vibration lowers or flatlines. It actually reaches levels far beyond that of the positive, because the conditions of the mind are no longer involved. And we are able to experience a sense of true freedom and deep connection to our essence that results in a state of contentment, tranquility, and ecstasy that we cannot know from the mind. So look around. Look at the impermanent nature of all things. Look at the tires on your car. They're not going to last forever, right? That car itself won't last forever. Look around. Look at the paint on the side of your house or the siding. Sooner or later, it's going to need replaced, right? Look at the impermanent nature of all things. Just start to recognize that. And as you do so, you'll find yourself appreciating what you have in the moment, who you are in the moment, and that you actually have the moment to experience. Make sure to visit me at www.expansionmastery.com. Order your Appreciation Mastery program if you want to really kickstart your sense of appreciation for life. That'll do it. And please, I'm asking for your assistance. I need your help. Make sure that you are sharing these podcasts. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, they're finding more and more ways to prevent shows like this from being uploaded there. We're running into all kinds of roadblocks and shadow banning and everything. They don't want real, authentic stuff getting out. They don't want the truth. It's all propaganda. So please help me by sharing them yourself. Help me get this out there. Let's give real, authentic spirituality to the people and help the consciousness shift. And the only way we can do that is together. And I am so grateful for all of you all around the world who continue to upload this podcast. I find it so amazing to look at all of you in all these other countries that are doing so. And I hope that they are serving you very well. And I appreciate your interest in authentic practices and your desire to live a fully engaged life. Until next week, my friends, I wish you the very best in your practices and your life. Take care.